Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the It's Okay to Cry Entertainment podcast.
Hello.
And this week I played Small World, which is an online version of a popular board game that I actually liked quite a lot.
I'm Arthur, and I played a lot of Snake Pass yesterday and today. But yeah, cool game. It's a platformer, but you move like a snake and you can't jump. So yeah, it's cool.
I'm Dan, and I play Planet Coaster again, because, well, it's basically the only game I play. Yeah, I know, I'm very qualified to be on this podcast about games.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm Demon, and I've been playing EU4 because the new DLC came out, and well, I'm a sucker for EU4, so I guess we'll get into that a bit later in the podcast.
I'll go ahead.
So, we're doing it now. We're doing it now. So,
Panic.
Panic. Bit of background on EU4. It's this grand strategy game set in late medieval Europe. You play a country and you try to take over the world. Basically, it's really complex and has a lot of replay value. But for me, I hadn't played it in a while because I felt like it was getting stale. I'd done most of the things I wanted to do, and there was no reason to play anymore. So they brought out a new DLC with map updates and extra missions and all that stuff, and I've gotten into it. And if you tune in to when I'm streaming, which probably every Monday and Wednesday if I remember correctly, and if I can make it with my with uni and stuff, then you can check me out and see me playing EU4.
Definitely do.
Which kind of brings me to the subject. EU4 is a game that, if you buy all DLC, costs, if I remember correctly, about €200.
Yeah, somewhere around that range.
Yeah.
I remember a while ago when everybody in our friend group started playing it and like getting me to play it, and it was like, well, yeah, but the game's only $20, but all DLC is like $240 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Then everything was on Humble for not that much, but
yeah,
now,
I think
obviously
17.
They brought out new DLC, and then
Yeah, which I mean, I found quite upsetting because when I was a poorer boy, not that I'm flexing right now, but when I had less money, I really wanted all the DLC, and the DLC are essential to the gameplay. I mean, I feel like they are. So I couldn't buy them, but all my friends had basically a better game than me.
Yeah.
And they brought out new DLC every half a year, every 3 months or so. And that was another €20 you had to spend. I didn't know how to feel because I love the game, and they are making DLC to make the game more enjoyable. And for the long-time users like me who think the game has gotten a bit stale, like I did with the last patch, they draw them back in every DLC cycle, basically.
Yeah.
And I like that. Yeah, you have a big game, you have a big team working on it, and of course the sales are going to drop because everybody's going to have it at some point. But they keep their monetization going by selling DLC.
keep the game fresh, right?
Yeah, and keep the game fresh, which is they're still working on it. That's what I expect if you're still working on the game.
Yeah.
But now they've also added this option where you can rent the DLC for €5 a month. So for €5 a month, you have access to all the DLC. Which, if you do some quick math, 44 months before it would have been a better idea to buy the DLC.
Right, which is like 3 and a bit years.
Yeah, which is 3 years just about. And I think that's a really interesting way of looking at monetization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Plus,
selling your game.
During that time, there will be new DLCs, so yeah.
Yeah, so it's like for five.
More. Yeah.
For $5, you get this and all the following DLC.
Yeah. Which would, for someone like me, be fucking amazing. Because, all my friends have this game that costs, $250 if I want to buy it in whole. But now I can spend $5 a month and see if I like it.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting.
Do they do this with other Paradox games?
I haven't heard about that yet.
Don't know. I don't think so. Like EU4 is their number one, really.
Yeah, because I had the same problem with Crusader Kings. That there's so much DLC that's so like almost essential to make the game like really good, and that the best game that it can be, kind of thing. I spent too much money on that game. Same with Stellaris, though less. I had that feeling less with Stellaris.
Yeah, because there is fewer DLC.
Yeah.
No, but also that I feel like Crusader Kings, and I haven't played EU4 myself, but Crusader Kings and Hearts of Iron feel less complete on their own than Stellaris does.
Yeah, EU4 feels... Oh, without the DLC, EU4 it's cursed. You should... yeah. No,
like, I played Stellaris without DLC for a while, and I was fine. But then if I play Crusader Kings without DLC, I'm like...
Yeah.
So when you play with other people, does everybody need all the DLC to be able to play together, or do you just get the DLC of the host?
I know in EU4 you can, borrow the DLC, basically. You can play with the host of... the DLC's host. I think it's the same with Crusader Kings and Stellaris as well.
Stellaris is too.
So, I mean, I assume it's the same with Hearts of Iron. Which, I really like that.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that that's a really good way of doing DLC.
Yeah.
It means that, when you're playing alone and you're discovering the game, in fact, it even gives you like a smaller scope, which in a way, I guess, makes it easier to learn. But when you're playing with your friends, you can still do everything they can without spending a lot more money. So I think that's really great.
Yeah, and it's also like I'm gonna go a bit more to the dark side here. From a business perspective, being able to advertise your DLC, basically, like allow players to play with DLC, but not on their terms.
It's like a demo. Like, this is how cool the game is with DLC. Yeah. Now when you play single player, you don't want to play without the DLC anymore because you felt how good it was with the DLC. So you'll buy the DLC.
And also you
for YouTube videos.
Which is actually a very clever thing, which makes me wonder if... Like, I don't know about any other games that do this. Probably, but I haven't heard of it.
There's a few, actually. It's getting more and more popular because I think it's also just like the bro move to do as a game studio.
Yeah,
the bro moment.
To a point where when you make a large multiplayer game that doesn't have like DLC that's shareable in this way, I think people get sort of antsy.
Yeah.
An interesting comparison is like the Call of Duty maps.
Yeah, I was about to make the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
because in Call of Duty, there's like the game comes with a set of maps, just like delivered, and then you can buy a season pass, which gets you new maps. And also some other content, but if you just play with friends online, it basically gives you new maps and some weapons.
Yeah.
Usually. Obviously, there's been so many Call of Duties at this point that it's impossible to draw one straight line through all of them, but for the ones I played, this was the way it was. Which sort of meant that you actually, like, I think they did the opposite of this, where, like, you felt like you had to buy it, not even because it was such great content, but because you needed it to play with your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of...
I remember my brother really, not falling for it. I mean, that would be a bit of an over-exaggeration, but he spent like 200 euros on Black Ops 2 on like zombie maps alone, like for like 20 euros a map, and I just never understood, especially since he was just playing single player. So, yeah,
I think that's something people usually underestimate, is the power of wanting to stay in touch and just wanting to be... If there is a price tag on playing online with your friends, most people will pay it eventually. If they like the game and they like playing the game with their friends, and it becomes a routine or like something you usually do with that group, you will pay for it. How like there's of course a ceiling somewhere, but you'll pay a lot of money to keep that experience.
And I think that's why it's sort of like, I think, seem scummy also, because you're
it's like you're
selling the ability to do things with your friends.
Yeah, it's like putting a tax on friendship.
Yeah, exactly.
Other coin, how would you feel if you put like a lot of time and effort into this great DLC, like really epic times, and like only 1/4 of the people that would enjoy it actually buy it? because they all play with their friends.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because when you make it available for like a lower price per month, then you sort of enable the people that have very little money but maybe a lot of time to play it, such as, teens in a certain range, especially. You'll enable them to like take a month to really enjoy your content, especially for single player games, I think. And then, have the option to sort of, save up with big air quotes, because it will be like, it should be an amount of money where it shouldn't be that much of a problem, but sort of make a more reasonable, point of saving up for, and then like, get it for a month. I think that's sort of okay. But then again, I have a difficult relationships with games as a service, so that's sort of why I tend to be a bit icky about it.
Why?
I think games as a service they're a great way of looking at what's really actually happening with games. It connects more, it makes more sense to me.
I get that. I'm not saying it's bad.
Can you define games as a service?
Right. So games as a service, to me anyway, is where you basically have a subscription to play the game. I mean, obviously, the official term actually goes into like some other stuff, and it's like quite a bit more complicated. But the thing I'm talking about right now is just basically subscription games.
So like World of Warcraft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, games as a service is actually technically more than that, but that is the thing I have
Let's just call them subscription games then.
Yeah, sure, subscription games.
Subscription
That's a better word. It's difficult for me anyway, because the way I enjoy a lot of games is I either have single player games that I'll have, and I'll really like play and intensively like go through, and then I'll be done with them.
Yeah.
Which would, for me personally, be great as games as a service. But for the publisher, that wouldn't work, because I'd pay, $5 once, play through the entire game in a month, and then never touch it again. I just don't think that would work for them, and for me even, it would almost, feel a bit weird, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas with multiplayer games, it's about having this huge library of cheaper games that I can, so that whenever a friend's like, hey, let's play this game, I can just pull it out.
Yeah.
But I think that also kind of depends on what kind of multiplayer, right? Because some, like, if you play and you host via Steam, like host lobbies, that's a different place where you're hosting your game. Or like on Roguelines, you can host it on your own computer, I think, even, as like the server, than if on World of Warcraft, where they host everything on their servers. Which means that they have extra upkeep and extra costs to take care of. So
I think, monetarily it makes a lot more sense for big online games such as World of Warcraft, but also even I wouldn't be so surprised if, for example, Overwatch went that way, or games like that, CS:GO even, although they made it free now, been free for a while now. I think it also there it just makes more sense, because you are, consuming a service, and the game is really just the client almost.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, obviously that's a massive exaggeration, but when you look at it one way, you could sort of see it that way.
Yeah.
But for me as a consumer, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have, either constantly start and stop subscriptions depending on what game my friend group just happens to be playing this month, purely because of the hassle of that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had, for example, a service that would be, sort of like Spotify for games, I'd have less problems with that. In fact, I think it would actually be better, for the same reason I think renting DLC is good for multiplayer, because that this entire library, all of your friends could, for at least this month, play all of those games rather cheaply. Yeah. So I think it's not that I have a problem with... I mean, in general, I don't have a problem with this model, but I think it's more when games individually charge you periodically, I think it discourages multiplayer.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
It raises the entry level significantly.
It does. It does raise the entry level, but I don't think it I think it's like a different kind of play style. Because when you, let's say you buy a subscription, then instead of buying a game, let's say you buy a game for $30 or $40, and you let it sit there for 2 months, not playing it because, well, you have other games to play, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter, you bought it, you can play it in a year, and you bought it then for once, and you can play it. But now you have this game which you constantly pay for. You pay less, but you do pay for it each month. So then it's almost like a waste to not play it. So you start playing it more often, which means it becomes a habit. Which means, you start to do it in your off times more often. You start to make like, oh, okay, so I'll just do every evening I will just check in for an hour or something, You start to make it more and more of a regime. And then you play it almost daily. And suddenly you play this game daily, which you pay not that much for, considering the time you've spent inside the game. So I think that if you have this like game hopping mindset, then subscription doesn't really work because, like as you said, the hassle of changing subscriptions, that's difficult. But if you think of it more like I'm going to play this game long term, I think subscriptions make way more sense because you're using this service of this company for a really long period and lots of it. So it's you get your enjoyment out of it and they get their money for it.
That's a really interesting way to look at it, because the way games as a service, or rental games, basically subscription games, are offered, they are set up to look like this cheaper option to play a game for a bit and try it out.
Mm-hmm.
But what you just described is more of they should be for the long term.
Yeah, in my opinion, then.
Yeah,
in my opinion, they should be the opposite.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think from an economic standpoint, it's really the opposite of what's gonna happen every time, basically. Because if you give a person the option to pay, let's say, a third of the price for every month, if they're gonna play it for longer than, say, 3 months, they are gonna want to buy it. But then it's gonna cost the developers money.
Yeah.
Whereas, so if you use this double-barreled system, really, of immediate purchase and subscription, where you can use both, then the developer is always going to be worse off.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, I'm not sure if I agree with that.
No, that's...
well, it depends on your...
You might have this situation that Arthur described, where you're not sure if you like a game, so you rent it. The rent gives you more incentive to play the game. And then after a while of renting it, you decide, oh, hey, I really like this game. You buy it. And then you've spent overall more money than you would have if you just straight up bought it.
But it was a good purchase.
Yeah.
You knew beforehand.
So it means it's
a bit
really
of the same
easy way to have an informed customer. Because I think that's one of the things that the gaming industry right now really struggles with. And Steam refunds sort of try to address this issue. But I think it's still very difficult to have a clear idea of the game you are buying.
Yeah. I think it's even more difficult. Like, it's already kind of muddy sometimes. Sometimes you're like, okay, this is this kind of game. And overall we have like this library of knowledge, or this syntax that we know what it means, we know if we see like a Minecraft-ish clone, we're like, okay, so I can guess what's inside that game, kinda, to a certain extent. And I'm gonna guess how it will play, what the controls are. Some games, like if you know an RPG, okay, there's probably gonna be these kinds of systems in there. And the experience themselves and the themes you'll get from the trader, if it's a good trader, and the information about the game. But then we are so used to those kind of sale talks that for newcomers, I think this was also in the video of Rasputin of this Gaming for Non-Gamers, that like if we say a free choice in games, So like you have free choice, choose your own path kind of dialogue things. We know that means you have a few choices in the dialogue that affect some key points in the main story that branch off due to your choices.
Yeah.
But if you say that in that way, like saying you have free choice, multiple path, choose your own path story, for a non-gamer that sounds like I have free choice in the game, which isn't what it actually is.
Yeah.
Because it's actually just you have a set choices which you can choose from.
They'll be expecting an almost D&D-like campaign where you can just say whatever to the computer.
Yeah, where you can just say, I'm fucking the
issues.
dragon, and you're fucking the dragon, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Interesting that your mind went there.
Sounds like Shrek, but okay.
Like you said, using the rental game is more to make more informed customers can be really helpful, even for like early or beginner gamers that don't yet know really what the whole syntax of gaming is, and don't know like a game when you get the information of the game. If that makes sense.
That's one of the reasons why I agree with it for EU4 so much, is because it's such a steep learning curve. I mean, let me just pull up my Steam real quick. I've got 390 hours in the game, and I would say I'm not the best. I'm okay in the game. I can do most of the things I want, but I am still challenged by the game, and I don't know all the mechanics. And so with such a steep learning curve, where even with say 400 hours, you're not great at the game yet. You can't expect people to immediately pay the full, say, €100 for it.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the option to indeed inform yourself for €5 a month, I think that's great.
Yeah, because right now that's really being just, well, not really solved, but you can see a lot of people online who are saying like, well, I didn't know if I liked the game, so I pirated it, and then later on I bought it.
Yeah.
And I think
this is a great alternative for that.
It's a very valid way of doing it, but it's also really easy to just say like, well, I've already got the pirated game, and €30 is €30 or dollars.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's worth that, so I'll keep playing the pirated version.
No.
Yeah, which
exactly. You think, oh, it's a fine game, but it's not too great, and so I'll just not pay the full price.
Yeah, but that's sort of, it's stupid logic, I think. But it's easy to fall in that mental trap. I can totally imagine.
Yeah, really, and I think developers are losing a lot of money because of this.
That's also one of the interesting points of video games and, for example, movies and TV shows and all that stuff. Entertainment, really, because for a car, you have a set amount of money, set amount of money invested, and it's really clear how many you're going to sell. Usually, you get this really clear ballpark. Whereas with games and movies, it's always a gamble, basically.
Yeah.
You never know how many copies you're going to sell. And I think that's an aspect which is really impactful for the gaming industry and the pricing of games.
And it's the same for the consumers as well. Because like with the car, when you buy it, you have the same knowledge. You know approximately for how much you're going to be able to sell it secondhand. Whereas
nothing.
Selling your games secondhand just isn't a thing right now.
No.
Well, I mean, it is a thing, but it's
physical cartridges.
It's not commonplace.
I sold Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Switch, even though it was a year and a half old by then, for €45 still.
Exactly. I think this is one of the
physical cartridges
are one of the things that consoles do pretty well, is facilitating, exchange of games.
Yeah.
Because it's much easier when you have a friend that has an Xbox. This was when I was younger, you have a friend who has an Xbox and you have an Xbox, you just trade games when you're done with them.
Yeah.
I never did that.
That you can do that, but also, there's a point to be made about. Yeah, it's a difficult situation because on one side, I think that's completely reasonable because I paid for the game. I can give it to somebody else. Same with a book or when I buy a DVD.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that brings up an interesting point because nowadays you don't own your games. You lease the software basically, but you have no ownership of the software in the game. And it's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot, and I've not reached a conclusion whether I feel good or bad about it. Because yes, you can't sell your games. You've got your Steam library, and it's this lease collection basically.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have all the access basically, and instead of a game having a resale value, you know when you buy a game that money is basically gone, and you could directly compare the price you pay for the game for the price per minute basically of entertainment you get out of a game. And I think I really like the fact that I can do that. And I mean, I have this big collection of Wii games. I think a lot of people have like this console they played on, and they have got this like this
Shelf.
Usually about a shelf full of games where, and it's always in the back of your mind. Well, it's not like you think about it daily, but you always think, well, I can always sell those games. I can always, when I'm done with them, I can sell them, and I haven't lost that much money. And then you go to Game Mania or GameStop or whatever store is closest to you, and you say, "Hey, I want to sell my games."
And they're like, "We don't need that shit."
And they're like, either we don't need that, or this isn't that rare. I'll give you 50 cents for them. And I'm always bummed out. It's. But if you compare it to seeing games as something where all your money is gone anyway, it frees me up to enjoy it more, basically.
Yeah. I think it's with most things we keep it and thinking, because not only will time add the value, but it already has such value because we had a good time with them, so they get good. They have big emotional value, which then we misjudge as having actual value. So, like, some games I had this, like, as you said, this drawer shelf full of Wii games, bought it to the Game Mania, and we're like, well, I'll take, like, 3 of these games for, like, €5. The rest is shite. You can just take it home. And I was like, okay.
Which makes it, I think, for me anyway, very difficult, because you have this emotional attachment to it, right? Which sort of, in your head, increases its value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very much.
I think that's kind of what you're touching on.
Yeah.
Which makes it even harder to let go. And then when you're also not offered a lot of money, it's sort of like, it almost feels insulting.
Yeah. No, but it's hard because we usually are like, oh, I'm going to keep it for now because I might want to play again someday.
Yeah.
And I can always sell it later. But then, like, I thought that like 4 years before I bought those games to Game Mania. But I hadn't played them any time in those 4 years, so I might as well have sold them those 4 years back. And those 4 years back, the Wii U was just out, so Wii games were still pretty alright to, to being sold. So I could actually make some, like not all, but some money back on it if I did it then.
Yeah, mistakes are made often.
Mistakes are made.
Yeah.
I think that we assume that things will keep their value, and we overestimate their value because of emotional attachment.
Yeah. For example, with me, with Assassin's Creed Black Flag, I bought that game on Xbox, PC, twice because Uplay crashed and lost my account. That was very nice. And then again on the Nintendo Switch. And I feel like, when you've bought the game that much, I would say, it's kind of justifiable to pirate it if it gets lost again or anything.
Yeah.
This
is the thing, I think, going back on Limon's point about like when you a lot of games, especially on PC, it's different on consoles and whatever. But on PC, when you buy a game, you basically have it linked to your account, right? And you don't own a copy of it.
Yeah.
I think I would totally agree with that if it were, you'd have that on your account everywhere.
Yeah.
It's sort of, right now I'm paying to get it to me, not to get a copy of it, but to get it, to bind it to my person. So then I would kind of expect to be able to enjoy it on whatever medium I want. If you do that, then I would totally agree with it being a superior form. Or, well, I mean, the case is made that it would be better than just buying individual copies.
Yeah.
And I think Xbox were talking about doing this a while ago. They were talking about having games on like the new Windows, that you'd have games shared basically between your Windows and your Xbox because they'd be running the same operating system.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good because it really makes you sort of, be able to make that case of like, oh, okay, you're not going to get a shareable copy, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what Dan said about pirating a game you bought for multiple platforms, ownership of a game, assuming you own a game, assuming you buy a copy and you own a game, which is not the case right now. But do you guys believe that if you buy, for example, the Xbox version, the ownership of that game should also translate to the PC version?
Not directly.
I think
I'm gonna say.
I think it's a different problem even. First, continue down, but.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
I think, a company does put resources on porting a game, even though sometimes it fails miserably, aka Batman the Arkham Knight. Sometimes it doesn't work great, but still there's resources spent on it. So I think that actually if you have a game on a platform, you should pay like a couple euros or a couple dollars more to have it on another platform. But what I find to be the case most of the time is you pay full price to have it on another platform.
Yeah.
And that is, I believe, a little bit
Yeah. That's sort of the point I was trying to make, right? Is like, I think when you own the physical medium of the game, you own it for that console because you own that disc or that cartridge or whatever. And that gives you the full right to then, resell that to somebody else. But it doesn't give you justification to have it on another platform. Whereas I sort of feel, what I was trying to say just now is like, I feel that when you buy it on Steam, you sort of should be able to even maybe have it on your phone. I thought about this, that I think there's quite a lot of games that would work perfectly on your phone. And I sort of like
but that's a whole other reason that doesn't work.
Oh yeah, no.
Assuming it would, I think I agree with you.
I think it's not completely unreasonable to. I think even it might be happening like the coming 5 years that there be phone computer cross-platform games.
Whatever happened to Google Stadia?
It's still a thing.
It's still a thing, but it flopped pretty miserably.
Okay.
It's
just
basically
laggy, because
too much input lag, I think, was the main complaint I heard.
Go ahead and talk about Google Stadia.
Yeah, I think it's really
I
interesting.
know what this is.
So Google Stadia is a platform where you can buy games, but you don't need. I'm not sure. You don't need the console. You just buy the game, and you can play it. And you don't need to download stuff. You stream it from their servers. So you don't have to download the game. You don't have to have like the consoles or anything. You just need to buy the game on Google Stadia, and you can play it on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, because you're just streaming it. As long as you have an input device, you can play it. Which is a very cool idea. But if you have thousands of people trying to stream big quality games at the same time with minimal input lag, it ain't gonna work.
This is kind of what Nvidia were trying to do as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same service, basically.
Okay, right.
Yeah, which, spoiler alert, also flopped.
It's pretty much still in development, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean,
it's still slowly. I have here.
There is going to be a day.
An Nvidia Shield.
Oh, really?
An original Nvidia Shield tablet.
Ooh.
Which is basically, I think, Nvidia's first play on this.
I think so, yeah.
And we've gone through some iterations, but I still think that there's merit in this idea. I just think it's going to take a few more years to get to a point where, it's usable.
Yeah,
because
I think just it isn't manageable yet with so many people, so little input lag that you would need to play a game. Like playing videos is easy, but playing a game, you want to have like key press, and within a millisecond have your character do something on screen.
Remote game streaming is basically what this is about, right?
Yeah.
And I think Steam had a play on this as well a while back with like the Steam machines, and then like the little you know, Steam box, I think it's called, that you just plug into the internet, and then you can stream from your more powerful computer to your your television or whatever. So you basically have a console using the hardware of your computer, and I thought that was really cool. But I think it also kind of flopped.
Yeah. I mean, I remember.
Do you think it needs to happen for remote game streaming to be a thing?
Better
the idea
access.
is very sound, right? It's just
Better network. Definitely a better network, more bandwidth.
Yeah, but
not necessarily higher speed, more bandwidth. That's the main thing, I think.
The thing is, it's not from the streaming services side. Basically, it's the consumers need better internet access.
I mean, often yes, of course, but I mean, also people with like OP NASA type internet kind of still had issues with input lag. I mean,
of course,
problem.
There is going to be input lag, but in order for this to be a viable option, because the people with good internet are usually hardcore gamers, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The people who have good internet are the people who already have a computer that doesn't need game streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for the people who need game streaming, they need to have such good internet that it can be easily streamed to them.
But also, this kind of can be more of a this could be a reverse thing. You could also say when this works and it works on higher internet speed, then people who can't afford a good computer will buy better internet to use this.
That's a good point, yeah. But I think the concept in general is it's quite foreign, basically.
Yeah.
Because
it's
up to this point, people who want to play games know it as having a thing to play the game on, whether that is a console, say Xbox or PlayStation, or their own PC. They have a thing they play their game on. They have to install the game, and then they can play the game. Compared to this really weird aspect of you can just anytime play a game, but it's not your game.
It's not even your computer.
It's not even your computer. I know, I wouldn't get on board with that. There is the option to just have my own system and play my own games.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Is
I don't own them, but
like sink in, sort of, like culturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there's like a perspective shift that's necessary. But I don't think it's the future to replace all gaming, but I do think that
it will become more mainstream.
I could really do a lot of good being more mainstream.
I think it can be the easy gateway into gaming in the future.
Yeah.
Where you want to try out if you like games, you just hire a game for $5 on your shitty laptop and see if you like it. And hey, I like it. Damn, let's buy a console.
And especially
I remember in 2015 when I was in computer science class. We had it in high school, and there was this guy who was he was a web developer around the same age as me, but he had an interest in those kind of things. But he also had a really powerful computer with the highest end specs, and we were on those shitty school computers. And he was like, "Oh, you want to play GTA 5, which has just come out? It was the brand spanking new, best of the best game." And I was like, "How these computers are comparable to a garbage dump?" And he fired up his computer at home remotely from 10 kilometers away, and then started playing GTA 5. And I remember being probably the most jealous I've ever been in my life, because that was so awesome. I was blown away.
Nice.
I love that moment. It was 2014 or 15 or so.
And I mean, probably the thing is, it probably would have been with so much input lag.
Yeah, probably. But I didn't notice because I was not really a gamer.
And I think that's one of the things. a really cool thing that's possible right now. Just streaming, not him setting it up, but because he set it up, it was cool, basically. But the fact that you can stream game is really cool, but it's still a gimmick, basically.
Yeah.
Really.
And
until it's stable, it's a gimmick.
Yeah, and I think that's.
I mean, gimmicks are awesome too.
Yeah, I mean, gimmicks are amazing, and they have their
the early
place.
adapters, but you know,
Yeah.
it's not enough to pull through to the mainstream, and I think that's what Arthur was touching on earlier, and I think I absolutely agree with that. I'm not saying it's going to go mainstream, but I think it would be really cool if more people got into it, or if it got to the point where it was usable for a more mainstream audience.
Yeah. I think it will go mainstream, but just not in the coming 2-3 years. It will take some time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right.
I have one last. I'm all over the place today. I'm very sorry.
I had another thinking, but that's no. Go ahead, please.
Thinking back to pirating.
Yeah.
What about emulation? Emulating NES, is that pirating? Because you are pirating a game.
Right? There's a lot of old games that are so significantly old that we, don't have the console, and that you need to go looking for like collectors. I mean, okay, for some things you need to go look for collectors, or like, find a really specific offer on eBay or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, I mean, some of them, like the NES, are still, somewhat available. But it's going to cost you a lot of money to actually buy that, usually, nowadays.
Yeah.
So I think the point is sort of really old games that have become significantly unpractical to play.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to just run them on your computer virtually?
I mean, the NES is not necessarily the best example of this, because, well, the NES Classic just came out 2 years ago, so it's actually available again. But
then that makes it the perfect candidate, in my opinion, because now there are people that are like, they're old shitty games. I just want to play an old game, and I don't want to pay full price for something that was like high end in its day, but is now now runnable on a toaster.
Yeah,
so I want to pirate it. But then there is a product out there that lets you play it. Like, you have the NES Classic. But then again, the NES Classic only has like 60 games or something.
Yeah, but I would go down again to like the multi-platform thing we talked about earlier. Like, if you already had the game on NES, I think, like, it's just hard, and why would you spend more money on a game you've already bought? So yeah, okay, go ahead, pirate it, I would say.
Yeah.
I would argue that an old game, most of the games that are emulated are only available second hand nowadays.
Yeah, that's
right?
good. That's
like, and literally not distributed anymore by the original companies.
Yeah, and from that point of view, I would argue you can pirate them.
Yeah.
Because you're not costing the developers any money.
Not only that, you're not losing the revenue they otherwise would have had.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would argue that's costing them money.
Yeah.
But that's So
that is a good rule of thumb. Like, in general, like, it's the same with games that aren't legally available in your country. I mean, you're not costing developers anything. They made the choice to not make the game available in your country.
Yeah,
it's not always that simple. But...
Not always the choice, but
they know the game's not available to you, basically.
Yeah, and so you're not costing the developers money. So why would you cost yourself money? Because, well, I mean, how can you even cost yourself money? That's okay. That's felt really weird.
But I mean. This reasoning is also the reason why Arthur went to Game Mania to sell his games and got €5 for three games.
Yeah, that's the problem of it, I think. So I mean, you're not losing the developers' money, but you're sort of losing the people who bought the physical medium money.
Yeah, but I would argue that's
right. I think.
Yeah.
If you pay $60 for a product that you will enjoy.
Yeah.
You're not paying that product with the thought in your mind, I'm buying this product right now so I can sell it at a markup later or for break even. Like, even if you are planning to sell it at a certain point for secondhand, you're already being less money. And if you aren't even thinking about it, then you weren't even thinking about selling it later on anyway. So then you didn't really lose money. You just didn't gain possible money. But like, I can sell my laptop and gain possible money, but I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So
You don't.
I think that's
You don't buy a computer, or well, you don't buy. Well, a car's a bad example. Car's a bad example.
yeah, because cars
But-
you usually do sell later on.
Well,
Because it's
that's
actually
one of the things.
fairly
But
possible for people to add value to cars themselves.
no, it's
Not
it
to
is
be-
possible to. I mean, for example, me with my moped,
Exactly.
it's worth. It's yeah. I mean, it's coming up
I
again. But
mean, well,
it's worth more right now than when I bought it.
That's what
Yeah.
I mean. Is that
It's still not a whole
it's
motor
more-
though.
Okay, it's
I
not
mean,
easy.
you paid more for it now than when you bought it. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
it's.
it's more possible to add value than with games, because you just won't.
Yeah, exactly, because it's a pure consumable. You
Mhm.
actually you consume the content, and it stays there, and it can be consumed by other people, but it loses the new value. So a game can be compared to a car you buy new. Yeah, a car for the first 40 years of its life, basically, is only going down in value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter what you do. Well, it's a bold statement, but so you shouldn't buy a car with the idea of I'm gonna buy this brand new car and I'm gonna sell it for a big portion of the price, over half of the price.
Yeah.
But if you compare that, well, but it's this. Cars are quite comparable to games because people do think I'm gonna sell them and I'm not losing the full price I spend on them, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things where we all agree you lose your money when you buy a game.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. All right,
I think with that, we are ready to do some plugs.
I mean, Indie Game Spotlight is up. Go check it out.
Go check it out. Exactly. Boom. Very
Yeah.
cool game called Curiosity. We're analyzing it, and check out the game on itch.io. Link was in the description of that video.
It
Maybe
will be
in this
one as
description.
well.
Cool. So
All right, cool.
check it out. Nice. That's a good
Which
plug.
is the Indie Game Spotlight is a new thing we're gonna try out and see how it does, where
Mm-hmm.
we look at indie games and we dive into the game design and all that stuff behind
Just
the game.
highlight them, because you probably don't know most of the games that will be arriving on that series, and we think they
Yeah.
deserve more attention.
yeah,
Yeah.
and of course. And in this video, actually, we had contact with the developer, and we had like a little interview, like not in person because well, Corona, but over text.
We had some nice quotes.
It was so cool. It was so cool.
Exactly.
It was pretty. It was really cool.
Yeah, so go check that out because it is live right now as you're watching it. Yeah, I'll probably be streaming EU4, but there's
That will
my
be
schedule's kind of
passed by
hectic.
the time this
Have we
goes out, I
ever-
think.
Have we ever plugged our Twitch? We have a Twitch.
Yeah,
We have a
go-
Twitch. It's Kid Cry Entertainment. Go check it out. Go follow and
Lewin
all that
does
stuff.
Mondays and Wednesdays. I do Sundays, and it's just a big
Sometimes there'll
hoot.
be random streams.
Sometimes there'll be random streams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all the plugs. And our socials, of course. Go check us out on socials. And our gaming channel.
Channel,
And our
of course.
website. Do everything. Because
Oh, we have so many channels. Just check
so
it
many
out.
channels.
'Cause we love you.
Right.
For our closers, somebody gives a top 3, and then all the other people have to give their top 3. But the twist is, we don't know what we're giving our top 3s on. It's only revealed at the end.
All right. So dirt, ink, grass. Dirt, ink, and grass.
Okay.
So I'm thinking maybe this is stuff you use for a painting or whatever, or like some sort of.
Worst
I am
Minecraft blocks.
Yes, exactly. I'm literally thinking Minecraft. That was the first thought that popped into my head.
Exactly.
But grass blocks are actually pretty cool, and also ink doesn't. isn't a
Not
block.
grass blocks. Grass.
Just grass.
Okay, for
Just
Minecraft blocks.
Wait, no. Yeah,
I
okay.
mean, okay, if they're Minecraft blocks.
No, there's no ifs. Give your top
There's
3.
no-
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. No, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Endstone. Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm thinking about
Endstone.
Okay, I'll go.
Endstone,
Okay.
lava, dark oak.
Dark oak. Okay. I'm thinking dirt, diorite, because I always get a fuck ton of it. And let's think. Mushrooms.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go with the Minecraft approach. I think I'm gonna go with real life ugly things approach.
Oh.
Yeah, you got that right. So I'm saying birchwood, which is actually also in Minecraft and is also ugly, but and let's see, birch trees,
What is actually something?
yeah, what is something? The color blue. Not that I don't even hate the color blue. I don't know why I said it, but that's my number 2, and my number 3 will be plastic. Yeah.
Pearl?
Alright, these were our top three things we ingested as kids, but probably shouldn't have. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We've been the Educate to Cry Entertainment team, and we hope to see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.